All right, Carmen, what's up, my man? Thank you for joining me today.
How are you, Gabe? Thanks for having me, buddy.
Absolutely. All right, first question today, and it might be the toughest question I'm going to ask you. All right, you ready for it?
I'm ready.
Give me one of your favorite restaurants in Chicago.
Bavets.
Oh,
Bavets is the
yeah.
spot. Old school
So,
Chicago.
what's your go-to order there? I think last time I was there, I had the ribeye with the bone marrow.
Bone marrow is fire. Bone marrow is fire. And then they do the mashed potatoes. I think they still do the macaroni and cheese there as well. But I mean, if you're not doing that, I took my parents there when they came for the first time. Never been to Chicago. Took them there for the first time. Took care of it. And it was like a small car payment. So if you guys are interested in that, you guys could check that out as well. But if you're looking for something on the lower side, I can recommend some of that as well.
So, how does the cuisine compare to? I know you're a Philly guy, so how does the cuisine compare to Philadelphia?
That's right up there. I mean, Philly gets a bad knack for like just being a cheesesteak city, but I think we are one of the best food cities in the country as well. You just got to get away from the tourist traps, just like here. Deep dish, stay away from the deep dish too. I'll be maybe a minority on that end, whereas like not a big deep dish fan. I take a lot of slack for that, but just not in my DNA. It's like a
I
small
agree with you.
lasagna.
I agree with you. I mean, I think once a year or maybe when somebody's coming to visit, I'm in. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot for me. And I'm going to be in Philly later this month, so I'm going to have to hit you up for some recommendations then. All right.
I will send you the full list. So I have my brother send me a full list since I haven't been there a lot, but he sends me the acceptable, in his terms, it's the acceptable restaurants. So I will send them all to you with the happy hours included.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So tell me, how are things going over at Bracy Performance right now?
Bracey's been good. We're really busy. Summer really kicks up. I know a lot of facilities, sometimes you lose out on a lot of people, but summertime here is very busy. We got a lot of pro, college, high school athletes all coming back in. And yeah, we're running full steam right now.
Well, cool. Really excited to chat with you today. Obviously, you share a lot on social media. If you don't follow Carmen, make sure you do at Nooch, NOOCH_13. Make sure you give him a follow. A lot of great content on there, but really excited to chat with you today about all the great things you're doing in the performance world. I know you've been in it for a long time, but really you started as a D1 baseball player. So tell me, how did your experience as an athlete end up shaping or influencing you as a coach?
I think a lot of that led to confidence for me as a coach, just taking control on the floor. So as you can tell, you've met me in person before. I'm not the biggest guy in the world. So having that confidence on the baseball field was definitely something that I had to learn a lot of. So from Philly, like you said, some hard-nosed schools, some hard-nosed games back then, but we kind of made it work, and it transferred easily for me. I played baseball at Temple University in Philly. Kind of walked on ish, transferred in after like half a semester at another school, and then ended up being the captain there by my senior season. So that was a really cool accomplishment for me, and just a testament of hard work and dedication. So that was definitely an easy transition into the performance world for me. It took me a little bit of time though to find my footing on how I wanted to train the way I wanted to train. I spent some time in Mike Boyle's system in Philadelphia, where they had a different outlet outside of Boston. So that really helped me along what I wanted to kind of shape on my own programming once I moved away from that.
Okay, so Mike Boyle's facility outside of Philadelphia, obviously the satellite facility. You started there, then how did you make your way to Chicago in the performance world?
So I thought it was just time that I kind of outgrew Philadelphia. I just saw Chicago as a place that had a little bit more opportunities and a little bit more eyes focused there. So it was kind of a no-brainer for what I was trying to accomplish with myself at the time. And I just kind of needed a change of scenery. I thought that I did all that I probably was able to do in Philadelphia at that time, which I still love the city, love going back. But at the same time, growth is good, growth is hard, and I just needed to step outside that comfort zone.
How would you categorize yourself as a coach? Maybe elaborate on some of the principles of yours in your early days as Carmen the coach. Like Carmen comes to Chicago, he begins his performance coaching. How would you characterize that coach?
I think we were all just, I feel like we were just trying to find our footing still. I remember even the days when I was at the Boyle, doing the Boyle stuff, you're just like, they have the programming set up for you. Everything's kind of layered of what you're supposed to do, but then you kind of question it because you're kind of like, all right, is this really working? I don't know if you've ever heard the term murder fit, but it's when you just kind of like wrap a bunch of things together where you're just trying to kill the clients as much as possible. So we got really wrapped up into that. We're just trying to like really beat up clients. I was like, this isn't good. So once I got away from that type of mentality, kind of just figured that sometimes a little bit less is more, and just understanding what programming actually was and is. So it took a bit, but we found it. And then meeting people, having good people to learn under, good mentors in the industry definitely helped.
Yeah, I think any of us can look back at our younger days of coaching and be like, well,
Yeah.
what were we doing? right? That's the hope, is that you can reflect on your earlier days and say, what the hell was I thinking? Because it means you've evolved and progressed as a coach. So you mentioned a couple mentors or maybe people who helped influence you in your earlier days as well. Who were some of those people that maybe started to help you expand your coaching horizons?
Definitely when I moved here, Megan Young is and still is a very good friend of mine. She definitely helped me with a lot of how to go about the business, how to be a professional in this business, and how to grow just not only as a human, but as a coach. So that was definitely someone who I attest a lot of my accomplishments to, and somebody who helped me lead. And then Kyle Bracey, who I work for now at the facility, another guy who I owe a lot to, just giving me a chance in the facility. When I first moved to Chicago, I was just trying to find my footing, like I said, and just got mixed up with kind of the wrong type of facility and where I wanted to be. So I kind of moved away from that during COVID, and then everything kind of fell into place after that.
Megan Young, another Keiser Human Performance podcast guest.
Yeah, shout out to Megan.
Yeah, shout out to Megan. She's doing some fantastic work. So thank you. So you strike me as a coach that really values creativity and curiosity in your training. I think that's very evident with the content you share on your social media. You put a lot out there. You say, this is me as a coach, which I think is awesome. Where did that mindset of exploration come from?
I think it just comes back to I grew up in a very athletic household. So my dad was a boxer. We had a facility, or a gym, I should say, in our basement. And even back in the day, I grew up in boxing gyms. So just having some time to kind of figure out what movement is, what things feel like. And that's a lot of what I share in my stories, what I share on my page too. Is it necessarily doing these things with clients every day? No, but it's just for you guys to get ideas of how to be creative, what might work for different people. Granted, we have our, basics that we're always doing, but not everyone's the same, right? So if we can find one or two different ways that help an athlete kind of gain an advantage or better themselves in the field that we're in, then essentially it's going to help all of our other athletes. So I'm just trying to help as many people as possible. And what the content I put out there kind of looks like, it might look weird sometimes. It might look like something you can benefit from, but you know what? Happy to be that guy and to put a bunch of different creative things out there.
Absolutely. And I think it's great. And for someone that's listening and they maybe have never seen your content or have looked at your page, can you describe what they might be seeing on your page?
A lot of dynamic, explosive movements, a lot of rotational dynamic movements. Yeah, I've recently, especially over the past few years, I got way more into the rotational aspects of things. I feel like when I first started posting a lot, it was more about more speed and agility work. And then I kind of got to work with more Keiser equipment, shameless plug, but here we are. But, it's probably one of the more beneficial pieces of equipment that I've been able to utilize with my athletes. Even if it's utilizing a different handle, utilizing a different movement pattern, whatever it is, I'm not afraid to take a chance and use it. So a lot of dynamic movements.
Yeah, so a lot of dynamic movements. And I know for you've harped on movement proficiency, and that's something that's really stood out to you in your training. So what does movement proficiency mean to Carmen?
To me, it is about executing not at a amount of volume, but at a quality of movement, right? So we can have athletes perform tons and tons of these different movement patterns, but are they doing them effectively, right? Are we getting the highest quality, the highest outputs that we need to get out of these things with our athletes? So even if it's a basic push-pull, the Keiser is going to allow us to kind of see what we're getting out of it. And it's easy for me to cue based on what I'm getting out of the numbers and all the reads that I'm seeing, right? So if someone's not staying in their hips, which is probably something that I cue a lot of, is hip loading, right? So not a lot of people understand how to load your hips, use the ground, and just kind of be explosive from those patterns, right? So a lot of people, when I say load your hips or to rotate, they kind of want to stand up and just get rid of all the stored energy that they've already created. So that is something that I feel like I constantly coach and cue on a daily basis.
So when you try to measure movement proficiency, you find yourself looking at both the qualitative movement, the quality of movement, and then also the combination of maybe some objective data. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything else that you're using to help measure quality of movement to say, yes, this is a proficient movement?
Well, we do it on a weekly basis, right? So if there's something I see a lag in, right, on a specific pattern, right? Obviously, we have the data now, and I feel like there's good ways to use data, and then there's ways that do we really need to, see numbers on the specific movement. So I have my basis of kind of what I go off of, and then we'll touch on them weekly and then kind of build some different patterns through that. So maybe we want to utilize an oscillatory method. Maybe we want to just go max velocity pulls, or maybe some type of just, full intent on something. We want to go a little bit slower. We want to go slow to fast rips, whatever it is, to kind of see where they're kind of slacking. And I feel like when we get into these patterns too, someone's always recruiting a different muscle that they shouldn't be using. So it definitely helps me kind of see those things and kind of cue from there. So that's why utilizing different sequencing, it doesn't even have to be actually on a week-to-week basis. It could be a set-to-set type basis. So just seeing these things, how they play out, it helps a lot.
For context too, for someone who might be listening here, what populations are you working with? Obviously, you work with a lot of athletic populations. You also have some Gen Pop, but a majority of your clientele is blank.
Majority of athletes. Yeah, so some higher level athletes.
So athletes of all ranges. I know you guys have high school,
different
college,
sports,
and
all different
professional.
ranges, all different sports. And I think that's one thing that not a lot of coaches, especially with social media now, everyone is a, specific trainer in a sport, right? Like basketball specific, golf specific. And, I think that's one thing that has been a difference of what I put out is you just train athletes, right? We all need the same things. And that's one thing that has definitely bothered me on a sense of like, oh, I'm the best basketball strength coach. I'm the best baseball strength coach. But if you could train one athlete, you could train them all. You're just looking at a very small sample size of movement patterns that you're sampling into their programming that is going to get them better. So, and some of the movements that are athlete specific, you could probably do them on the field, the court, wherever their actual, training is actually taking place in their sport.
Yeah, at the end of the day, training in itself, resistance training is general. It's general compared to sports. It's relevant to sports. It's not really specific to a sport. I think there are some nuanced things that we can all appreciate about a certain sport, especially as it pertains to injuries and injury risk, that, are very relevant to one specific sport. But, a strength conditioning professional, while they may work with a specific type of athlete, they're a performance coach. And a lot of these principles and training methods can be applied across a wide range of athletes. And it sounds like you're experiencing that. So, okay, we're really helpful. So athletes. So I imagine with the number of athletes and the variety of athletes you have coming into your facility, you see a lot of people, sometimes for a long period of time, sometimes for a short period of time. So anyway, with that, is there a common thing you see amongst all of these athletes where you're like, I know I'm likely going to have to address this when they come in? And maybe that's something that's rotational. You hit on that before. What do you find yourself coming back to, regardless of what kind of athlete is coming in for the most of the time?
Well, it's funny. Like you get some of the athletes away from their sport, and I can say this confidently, like not a lot of them, if they haven't been in a facility that is good at the strength and conditioning side of things, they don't move well. Right. So that's something that was very surprising to me when I first got into training higher level athletes, is just seeing like general movement is a very thing, but we don't see our athletes move well. And then just building those proficiencies out off the bat, just like skipping, bounds, just being able to move laterally are very simple things that not a lot of athletes I've seen that have come into the facility do well at a very ground level. So I've had to kind of reboot some of those things or what they've learned, or kind of just take those out, build them into the warm up or even into just a movement day for them, and then kind of go off of that. Because if we can get those foundations to where they need to be, then some of the other stuff kind of cleans itself up, right? So then we can move rotationally better. And that's another area as well. It's just sometimes you're kind of probably never done any of these type of movements, and we probably should, because we are rotational by nature. So we should definitely be doing more rotational movements in the gym.
It's pretty amazing, right? They're so talented and they're so good at their sport. You would assume that maybe they're really high quality movers. However, that's not always the case, especially with those that have only played one sport their entire lives.
Right. And that is very interesting too. Like something so basic as just skips, right? I've had to do full days on doing skips, doing bounds and things of that nature, but put a ball at their feet, put a ball in their hand, completely different human instantly, because they've been doing it for their whole lives. So it's interesting, but that's why, we're in the position that we're in, and we're able to kind of help them along the way.
So I know you do some work with some teams. You've had some experience at Red Star, and you've worked with teams across the board. As somebody who is in Chicago, you have athletes coming in and out, right? They maybe come to Chicago for a few weeks or a few days, then they leave. A lot of people we have on here work in a team environment. You're not necessarily in a team environment for most of your day. So as a practitioner, how do you get the most out of the short amount of time? What's your approach to having somebody in your facility for maybe a short amount of time, whether that's a few days or only a week, to really make this worthwhile for them and get the most out of their training?
Yeah, I think it goes to communication, what they feel like they need to work on the most, and kind of give them some of those guidelines if they're going back into another facility, and then kind of giving them almost like homework to take with them and see what they need to work on, right? So that's why we have data, we have numbers to kind of look at. Maybe they're not doing it in another facility. We kind of test and screen them and then see what we can work on. Most of the athletes I have usually are with me. I don't have anyone that's really in for a very short period of time like that. I have a lot of like monthly. I get them for a month. I get them for 2 months, 3 months. So that helps, right? So where I'm able to kind of get those 4 week windows where I can kind of do my programming with them, or kind of go through my eccentric phase, maybe a little bit more cluster phase, and then get them into a peaking phase if they're going back into what they're training or their school, their team, whatever. So I'm lucky enough to kind of get them in like a 2-3 month increment. Weekly is very rare for me, but like if I had somebody that has been only going to be here for a week, I would kind of do like that homework type thing where I get some numbers on them, kind of show them some movements that they can take with them, show them their other facility, and kind of go about their time that way.
Well, it feels like a bit of a delicate balance of trying to meet them where they're at, but also in a short amount of time, get them prepared for where they need to get to.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got it, you got it.
Well, I guess my question for you is like, how do you navigate that balance?
I mean, a lot of times too, it's like being in sync with where they're going back to as well. Sometimes in the winter we have some pro guys and them navigating with the pro clubs too as well. So having those conversations with them and building trust with the clubs that they are associated with, that's huge, because I really want to be able to have that rapport and have that trust from those teams to say, hey, okay, you're allowed to go back into that facility, or you're whatever you guys accomplished, we want more of that, right? So I mean, we do a good job getting guys bigger, stronger. How strong is too strong? And then what else can we kind of work on? We get some of the younger pro guys in here. They're deadlifting 500 pounds on a trap bar, bench pressing over 300 pounds. And I'm like, okay, we can do that. But what else can we do now? So the strength side, we have it. And I think that's where it kind of separates some of what we do here away from other facilities and gets back to being creative, right? We're able to work on these rotational qualities. We're able to work on some more velocity type movements. We're able to kind of get them on these crazy treadmills that we have and get them faster. And then we have all the toys, but now how are we implementing them? How are we utilizing them to benefit them and get them ready for camp or for spring training?
Yeah, and it sounds to me like the communication piece is one of the biggest pieces, whether that's with the client directly or with the team. So you find yourself actually reaching out to these organizations and having, communication between one another. Obviously, if this is a repeat client and they're coming in, they just know they're going to be in Chicago for a few months every summer. So it sounds like you're able to develop that relationship with the performance staff there.
Yeah, and it's huge to just be able to have someone who can just relate to the athlete, right? Like I was in Miami over the winter time working for Unrivaled Basketball with WNBA players. And, you get thrown into this setting and you're working with some of the best athletes in the world. And it's just like, hi, I'm your strength coach for the next 12 weeks. And no one knows who I am. And I'm just like, how do I, literally the best WNBA players in the world. And you're just like, how do I connect with them? Okay, just be yourself, man. Just get used to it. Don't try to like implement your stuff really fast and just like be overbearing and like really assert yourself into this setting. And it worked out, just getting to know people and, being a human. The human element goes a long way, right? And now some of my favorite people on this planet.
So tell me, I totally agree with you, right? Like we talked about before, they're already so skilled at what they do. They're there for a reason, right? And without us, they'd likely still be in the same position.
Exactly.
It's about maximizing where they're at now and really allowing them to continue to do what they're doing or make a tweak here and there and allow them to increase the performance by a little bit. And that little margin gives them a huge competitive edge. So my question to you is, how did you get involved with Unrivaled Basketball?
I was just reached out through the director. So it was through Instagram, which was how a lot of opportunities have happened for me. So I was reached out through Instagram and then had a bit of a conversation. Didn't know a new league was being started. And then obviously, I perked up really quickly when I heard about the league and the opportunity, and it was one of a kind type thing to create a new league. And once I heard who was all involved, it was a no-brainer for me. And to get away from Chicago in the winter and be in Miami, also a no-brainer for me. Just an overall amazing experience.
Yeah, I can tell just looking at your face when you said it, you're like, yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, once everyone kind of opened up and it was like, okay, everyone's really cool here. Everyone's on the same page. Everyone's here to help us get better, and that was fun, man. It really was to be a part of a history-making organization like that. It means a lot to me to be invited and to be one of the few males on the performance side. That was very cool.
Yeah. And will you be going back there for a second year, you think?
I believe so. Yes,
Like,
I
I hope
believe
so.
so.
Miami was great. I really hope so.
Yeah, me too. But like now, it's just like we've made friends, right? So we have friends, and everyone's really cool with each other. But it was definitely an experience at first, because, like you said, you're walking into these rooms with uh, the best WNBA players in the world, and you're like, why should I listen to you? Like, what are you going to do to help me
Right.
get better, right? So just finding where I could fit in, and like, just being in pro settings before definitely helped. It was cool. I have nothing but good things to say about the experience.
So one of the great parts about working with professional athletes, right, is they're very in tune with their bodies. They have a very good understanding. They're self-aware. So how do you allow them or create a space for them to really take their own ownership in their training when you're training with them?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people there, they already have people, right? So a lot of athletes, they have trainers that they listen to. So, once you get into that setting and they can kind of see how you respond to certain things, or, if they're curious about their own programming, that's where you kind of just have to be that crutch for them sometimes. It's like, okay, I have this, but we don't necessarily have this type of equipment. What else can I do? Right. And the curious ones will always come up to you. The ones that want to get better, the ones that know they have to get better, they'll ask you. Right. So it's just kind of being there and just being available for them when they need you. So, and that was huge for me. It was just, it's not like I said before, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to be super assertive in that situation and be like, if we don't do X, Y, and Z, then you're not going to get better. But like, where can I assert myself? Like, okay, I have 7 minutes for this warm up on day one, right? Okay, here we go. This is my interview to them. And I've seen it before. Like, some people don't like how people warm them up and then it's done. This is it, 7 minutes, right? So that first day was my audition for them to trust me and to be a part of that. And then maybe people didn't trust me right away, which was true. And then gradually, more and more, it built up. And then, yeah, and I'm walking around in a crop top.
Okay, take us to those first 7 minutes then. I mean, I'm sure you really thought about what you were going to do and what that looked like, especially the night before, right?
Yeah, you want to practice it, but then you got to feel the room out. And then it's always like we plan as strength coaches in those settings, and then the coach comes up to you, you have 3 minutes. But it luckily that never happened to me. All the coaches were great, and we always had enough time to get everybody prepped and ready. But like, I always like cue in on like one specific athlete on the team, right? You can tell, you can read faces when you do it.
Right.
Length of time, we've been kind of in this atmosphere. One person who's kind of, the general of the team will kind of give you the stare, the look to like keep it moving, or like, okay, I like this. Let's stay here for a bit. So I always kind of go off of one specific person on if I'm in a team setting like that, and that will kind of be my guide for where I'm at. I'm very good at, calling the audible if I need to get a feel for the day, how slow they walk into the facility, or, who's limping, who's not limping, who's getting treatment done. So, you just things to be aware of. But that's always been a very good thing for me, is to just kind of cue into one specific person, whether they are with me or not. But, it's worked out.
Yeah. What has been inspiring you lately in performance training? I imagine you might weave in and out of some things that are really inspiring you. What right now is kind of like inspiring you as a coach in terms of performance training?
There's some really good other guys doing these innovative things in our industry too. So just seeing how some of the younger guys are coming along and developing their programming, and, some of the younger guys just trying to stay in line with these guys. So like, still trying to be who I am and just trying to know that we've been doing this for a long time. It's just kind of like the old guard, you know what I'm saying? Just trying to keep up with the young guys now, but like, we are who we are at this point. I feel like I'm very established in our industry enough that people kind of look up to me in that sense. But some of these younger guys, the way they're moving around, being able to program, it's very cool to see, man. Because I feel like there wasn't a lot of performance stuff that was getting posted when my time kind of blew up on social media. But now I feel like everybody is doing like really good work, and people aren't afraid to kind of put their stuff out there and show who they are and how they program, which is really cool to see. And there's a lot of really good minds in our industry.
Is there a specific example? It doesn't need a specific person, but just an example of some of the things that you are seeing where you're like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
Nothing super specific, but, sometimes I kind of just watch and, see how I can kind of implement some of the other things that people are doing with their athletes into my own programming. Some of it, I know a lot of people put stuff out for themselves and like how they're training. So that's something I want to get more into is just like showing my personality as well, and like talking over the cameras and just being able to kind of show who I am as a person, because we get looped up in this sentiment that we're robots as trainers, and a lot of us have really cool personalities that not a lot of us get a chance to show. So that's something I'll probably be diving more into. It's just getting a sense of how to make my videos look a little bit more aesthetic and show a little bit more of my personality.
Yeah. Well, earlier you mentioned the Keiser equipment, and I know you do share a lot on that. So I am curious to hear from you. What is it about that equipment that really strikes you as a coach or draws you to it to use with your athletes?
I think it's the loading, right? So we can safely load our athletes on every machine you guys have, from an eccentric component where it's not like overbearing, right? So if we put somebody on a belt squat, we put somebody on an air squat, it's not going to put them in a position where they feel like something bad is going to happen. Whereas obviously there's nothing wrong with using barbells, but sometimes we can kind of face that, or like bit of a sense of, hesitation with a lot of our clients or our athletes. It's just like, oh, I'm not familiar with this. Okay, well, scratch the barbell. Let's go load you a little bit more on a belt squat, on an air squat. So that's always been my main concern. It's just like safely loading my athletes. And then once we're able to kind of get that under control, we can dive into so much more just from performance standpoint.
Yeah, and one of the things that we talked about off air a little bit was this idea of just problem solving. And at the end of the day, sports are incredibly complex. It's almost an unsolvable puzzle, and every day we're doing our best to solve it, right? But it's a complex, dynamic environment. So my question to you is, how do you approach problem solving with athletes? What's your process for saying, okay, number one, identifying a piece of the puzzle that's maybe missing, and then trying to add that piece?
Well, I think it's funny too. We are, as coaches, the good ones, we are elite problem solvers, right? So how can we kind of take, like you said, that missing piece and turn it into something that's going to benefit them? So just having a bunch of different exercises has gone a long way for me. So if I feel like someone's struggling with a specific exercise that we're doing, obviously we're going to call a quick audible and get them on something that they're more comfortable with, and then kind of just understand what was causing the problem with the first exercise. That's something we'll kind of go over after, because I'm a big notebook guy. I will write everything down. I know a lot of people have laptop, but I'm stuck in the Stone Age. I still have the notebook out, writing things down all the time, little notes for people's sessions. So just understanding or seeing what that issue was for that particular exercise the first time that needed a bit of a regression or a different flair on that. And sometimes it could just be a sense of how we're cueing things, which I think goes a long way as well. How are we cueing things? How are we relating it to the athlete, to the client? Just giving them cues. I feel like when we have a higher end athlete that's not familiar with some of the movement patterns that we've done, if we're trying to get a little bit more complex, how can we relate it to their sport? That's been something that's helped me a lot, especially with the basketball guys. Just give them a cue probably that they would relate it to a movement in the game or in practice, right? So that's helped me a lot.
What's an example of that? I know there's a lot of work. Nick Winkelman talked about internal cueing versus external. Do you find yourself doing a lot of external cueing? What's maybe a cue that you find yourself constantly going back to, let's say with the basketball population?
Just some step out type work. So relating that to a little bit of a jab step, which is a specific that I kind of used last week actually with one of my basketball guys here, doing a variation of a lateral step or a lateral lunge, just having them understand, just think of it more as like a deeper hesitation step or a deeper jab step, where we're trying to get into your hip, like really create that upper half separation, the lower half just moving together tight. So things like that.
And as you try to problem solve, as you do your best to identify the problem, how do you find, or how do you identify if this is a strength issue, if this is a velocity or speed issue, if this is simply just a motor pattern issue and a muscle recruitment issue and sequencing? How do you find yourself deciding in the moment, or maybe after reviewing the session, that, hey, we need to maybe put more eggs in this basket?
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of the data that we use too. So if we end up using force plates, so that can kind of help gauge where we're at. And then a lot of our screening definitely helps us a lot. I mean, obviously, I will do a lot of, just through the first warm up I'll do with my athletes, a lot of like single leg balancing, just through like a dynamic warm up. And that's all I kind of need to see sometimes if I don't have a plate available to me to kind of see where the testing is kind of failing at. Yeah, a lot of the things I can see is like through the warm up, generally I'll be able to assess without the data. And again, having the data always goes a long way, but I can kind of see it initially through our warm up and some of the testing drills that I've done with some of my people through like a little bit of a different movement screening. I remember when some of like the FMS movement screening was kind of popular. I don't know how much we're still utilizing that, but just kind of developing a screen that kind of helps and is a little bit more dynamic for our athletes. It's more relatable to them.
So for an athlete that comes in and starts training, an athlete who's never been to Bracy before, do they all go through force plate jumps?
Not all of them. It's specific to the trainer. I feel like if we're a little bit more educated on the plates, then yes. If they have a team that wants to see numbers, then yes. I would like to see more of that kind of used, but that's just me. Yeah, but we definitely have a system in place. And I think that's one of the cool things with the facilities. We all have the kind of freedom to kind of develop and see what we want to do and how we want to train our athletes. Is utilizing the plates and end all be all to just, seeing these things? No, but it does help a lot.
So a combination of, okay, this movement, come in, warm up, let me see you move. I have my own type of qualitative screening, obviously relying on your coach's eye in concert with some of the objective data along the way. Okay. So
I use the frames a lot, actually. For myself, cool. I use the force frames a lot. Yeah. I just feel like just from a strength side to just seeing where we're at, especially joint to joint and limb.
And is that something you're doing weekly, bi-weekly?
I do it weekly. Yeah, I do it weekly. Yeah, especially some of the basketball guys that come in, just seeing where they're at. Because sometimes I don't necessarily know what's happening on the performance side when they're with some of their basketball coaches. So I just want to see where they're at.
Okay. So going back to some of the Keiser equipment, because I'm just curious about it. For you, what was your first experience? I know Mike Boyle has some Keiser equipment in their facility. For you, what was that first time that you started getting your hands on it?
So it was back in Philly at that facility. I believe it was just a functional trainer was the only piece that we had there. And then it was the chop sequence, the push-pull sequencing, a lot of the sequencing. So that was my first experience there. And then just being very new in the performance world, had no idea what the numbers were. Just no idea what they were when I first started training. And then obviously educated myself a little bit more. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. And came into Bracey, and Bracey has all the Keiser equipment. So then once that was introduced to me, then it was just like game on. Now I can really kind of program how I want to program and kind of develop these types of patterns that I really want to develop for my athletes. Yeah, once you understand a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like you're continuing to explore. And I think that's maybe what you're getting to is like, once you kind of understand it, once you understand pneumatics, it kind of allows for you to really explore as a coach.
Absolutely. And now you guys have the new interface. I haven't gotten a chance to work with the new model with the interface, but that'd be something that I would love to explore too.
Yeah, and of course. And taking a look at, some of the things that you've shared, I guess with the rotational work, right? I just want to spend some time there because if you were to visit your page and the things that you said you're really interested in now, is it simply power output for you that is your guide? I mean, a lot of people can compensate in different ways. I could create power or more wattages by changing the way I actually perform the movement. So I guess, how do you create enough constraint so you can look at the data and say, yeah, we're actually improving here the way we want to improve it versus, okay, cool, it's just a higher number on the screen?
Right. Well, I mean, we're just looking at a volume type, right? So you take the volume and then you kind of base it over time to see how much these guys are improving. So if we're just trying to get, like, we'll use some of the baseball guys, right? So if we're trying to just see what a push-pull looks like on a weekly basis, if we're just keeping that number very simple from a 3 to 5 rep range, right, and we're not going maxing anything other than that, there's a good chance with some of the other stuff we're doing that we're going to see those numbers kind of increase if we're doing the right things, increase or like cueing the right things as well. Because those guys are fun to work with, right? Some of those guys you see and you can hear it, right? You can hear when some of those reps are strong. Like you'll hear the arms kind of move in a different way that, you might not hear them move from like a general population standpoint. So right. I'm a big believer in, just hearing patterns as well, like sound and like rhythm. So do we have good rhythm? Can we hear these things? Even when we do some of the speed work, you want to make sure it's rhythmic, the cadence is there. Same thing with rotation. We want to make sure the thing is free flowing. And that's the advantage that we have using the Keiser equipment, that it's free flowing and that the numbers are where they need to be, but keeping it simple and having the volume where it needs to be. I don't think I do a lot of when I'm chasing numbers more than 3 to 5 reps. So there's a good chance we're able to kind of produce the outputs that we want to get out of them in that rep range.
I totally agree with you with the way it looks and the way it sounds, especially with those
it sounds weird, but if you've never like heard someone like pop like a I was like a 4K on like a pull, you're going to hear it.
Yeah, and those groups are especially competitive. I know
Yeah.
session, not that the session can get out of hand, but it almost turns into, okay, like, I want to go again. I want another one. Okay. So then I guess for you as a practitioner, now how do you translate? Great, we've increased the performance here on this rotational, on this punch pull, on the Keiser equipment. How do you evaluate the impact that that's having on their actual sport and sport performance? Is that a communication piece between you and the athlete? Like, hey, this feels different. I'm seeing increased performance, exit velocity, whatnot.
Sorry, brother. I'm getting this load device storage message on my uh, screen. It just keeps popping up. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good. I think that's okay. Did it go away?
No, it's still, hold on. Let me hit OK again. No, it keeps popping up on my end. I don't want it to mess up our stuff here. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I don't know how else it would.
It's probably my iPhone 10 that's messing up.
Well, let's see
It
this.
should be good, right? It went away
Yeah,
for a little. Maybe it'll stay.
Yeah, we'll just keep riding with it. So my question for you with that is, great, you've increased performance in the weight room. We have a higher output number. It looks great. How do you evaluate the impact that that's having on sport performance, right? Is that a communication piece between you and the athlete? Hey, my exit velocity has jumped, or hey, I'm seeing a big increase in my performance on the field. Really, how can we translate an increase in rotational power or performance in the weight room into sport-specific movements?
Yeah, I think it's the word of mouth, right? The communication aspect. So the athlete's feeling good, they believing in everything we're doing. If they're noticing a difference, at batting practice, on the field, on the pitch, then yeah, obviously it's very communicative. Would I like it to be more, to be able to kind of see it myself? But yeah, you kind of just have to take it with a grain of salt and just understand. I'm always following my guys like stat wise and just seeing where they're at and being able to like evaluate them that way, right? So if it's a simple process of like, okay, we hit, granted, do I have any bearing on seeing or like hitting for them? Absolutely not. But can I help them stay healthy and engaged in, throughout the whole season? Absolutely. I feel that way. So following their progress throughout the season, okay, maybe this was something that is my end. And I'm maybe a weird performance guy in that sense where I will bear some of the blame if it is my fault because I was an athlete. I know how it is. I want the best, performance people to help me along the way as I'm going through this. And obviously I will bear a lot of the responsibility on that, even though I shouldn't. It has no bearing on me. I'm not in the batter's box. I'm not shooting threes. I'm not playing soccer. You got to let it go at some point. But yes, well, I will take into consideration stats and have that conversation with them once they come back into the facility. Like, hey, did you like what we did last offseason? How can we be better? And it's just taking accountability and just having these conversations.
Yeah, and I think I'm curious to know and hear from you. Bracy Performance has a great reputation in Chicago, obviously, as a terrific performance facility. What is it about Bracy Performance, and I know you've been there for some time, that makes it such a great facility for people to come train at?
I think it's the atmosphere. I've been in a lot of gyms and it's welcoming, right? You walk in, everyone says hi to you, everyone knows who you are. I think it's very simple things like that that go a long way. You don't want to walk into a facility and no one acknowledges you. No one knows your name. It's almost like Cheers. So you go in, everyone kind of knows who you are. You're welcome. You kind of feel this sense of family. And that's a word that gets thrown around a lot in our industry. It's true. We take care of each other. We look out for each other. And it just kind of, goes down the line of things, and doesn't hurt to have all the cool toys in here as well.
I was going to ask about the toys because I know you have the tread ramp, but among the toys for someone listening in, can you tell us like what are some of those toys that you have there?
So I believe that tread ramp is the second biggest in the country, actually, by Tough Tread. I think only the Houston Rockets have one that's as big or bigger than ours, but that like helps because Tough Tread's like down the street from the Rockets facility and not halfway across the country. So yeah, we have one of the biggest treadmills in the country. It goes to an incline of 30, goes about like 25 miles an hour. We have another tread from Tough Tread, super fast, Keiser equipment, air squat, bell squat, the cage. I call it the cage. I don't know if you guys call it cage. Or different attachments, the squat rack and everything. We have a jump X that I feel like not a lot of people have access to where, was it I'm blanking on the weighted jump machine. You'll see a lot of basketball facilities where it's like cables. Why am I blanking on the name? But we have a loaded one where we can kind of get some good vertical training in, and you have some of the best trainers in the world. which help the toys.
Yeah, I mean, even when I visited, what was that, 1 or 2 years ago or so, it's easy to tell when you walk into the facility, right, that how welcome people are when you walk in. People ask you your name, how you doing, and you can just see the vibe of when someone walks in through the doors. It's easy to see that family culture that's been curated over time there. So that's always appreciated for sure. Okay, so my question for you, as you look around at the industry, as you reflect back on where you've come from, what excites you about performance training moving forward? Is there something right now that's maybe underappreciated that you think, hey, there's a space for this in the future of performance training?
I think that's a really good question. Actually, I don't think we, sit down and think about that too much, but I would definitely like to see more rotation developed through just all different programming. Because again, like the way some athletes or just the way some trainers kind of look at it, it's just like, oh, we're going to do this anyway. It's all things that we don't necessarily have to do. It's an eye wash exercise. Just seeing that more developed into more programming, even if it's one exercise, that's definitely something on my end that I would like to see more of. But, sometimes it takes more people to kind of lead that charge, and, I'm more than capable of doing that.
Yeah, I think especially in a sport like basketball, I mean, we've talked about that a few times. So much is dedicated to any sort of vertical movement, right? Landing mechanics, jumping, power development in a linear or sagittal plane, and not so much always dedicated to the transverse plane and rotation. So I think that that's super cool. Even though, like you said, like sports in itself, it's a very rotational, sports in itself is very rotational. So.
Well, you think about just how much time basketball guys spend in these patterns that they probably only just do on the court. They don't really load them or just take the time to kind of just find the position where it's comfortable to load, right? So just have them to understand that. And once we can get them into the facility and just buy into it a little bit more, it's going to go a long way. And I see it. A lot more basketball guys are starting to, or basketball trainers, if they're just basketball trainers or market themselves that way, or taking into the rotational development of their athletes. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah. Well, Carmen, I really appreciate it. I got one more question for you. It's a quick, fun one for you. Favorite thing to do on a summer off day in Chicago?
Sleep. No, no, I'm a golf guy. I'm going to probably go golfing or hit the lake up. So, we don't get the weather too much. So, we got to embrace the 2 months of the hot weather that we get here.
I appreciate it. Big thank you, Carmen Del Mastro from Bracy Performance, for joining me today on the Keiser Human Performance Podcast. If you're listening, make sure you throw Carmen a follow, show him some love. He shares so much great content, highlighting all the great work that he's doing here in Chicago. His IG is Nooch_13. That's NOOCH_13. Carmen, on behalf of Keiser, thank you so much for your time. Can't wait to visit you again soon.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.